morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshop. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. Before we get started today, let's check in with my assistant. There she is, sleeping under the bench. That's not a treat. All right, you had yours already. She had a rough night last night. The Chiefs played in the AFC Championship game, and of course there's always some yelling when that happens, and she does not like it. All right, and of course the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to win. Hey, go Chiefs. Today we're going to start on the drawer fronts, and I'm going to do the bottom three. The top shelf or the top drawer has the big shells on it, so that's going to be separate. But we're going to do the three, the drawers that need, they have to have the same shape as this template. So they got to have this same profile on them. So normally the drawers, I would start the drawers by doing all the dovetails first while everything is square. But in this case, I was worried about the blowout, so I decided I would go ahead and shape these first, but not just do the fronts, but not do the backs. We start with a block like this is one of the drawer fronts, so we've got to cut that out. So we got three of them to do, and the problem with this is we've got to go across the grain to get these shapes. So I can't use the wooden planes. The angle is too steep. You need a really low angle to be able to do end grain, and that's basically what we're going to have to do, is shape this end grain on these curves here. And then we got to worry about it blowing out when you're going across, and then that last little bit is likely to blow out on you. So the process I'm going to try to I've done one already, or part of one, so I think that works pretty well. I started with the blanks being the drawers a little bit tall, about a 1/4 inch bigger than it needs to be. So the boards are about a 1/4 inch wider, so that if I get some blowout, I can, when I trim it to size, I can cut it off. But I think I came up with a method for doing it that I don't really need to worry so much about that. I started with the template and keeping the top on the top of the drawer, and then trace the pattern on the edge of the board, like this. Trace that out, and then transfer it to the bottom without flipping it. Just going this way, and do the same pattern on the other side. And then I do that in a repeatable method, and that is I have a stop at this end, and I'm using this top edge, so I'm putting it upside down, so we have those two reference surfaces, so I can repeat. So I mark the edge of the board, and then we're going to cut it out on the bandsaw. But only to about a 1/16 of an inch within the line, as close as I can get to the line without risk of going beyond the line. And that's this piece here. That's what I've done, is I've marked it, and I cut it out on the bandsaw. Then I went ahead and put the template back on with double-sided tape. Taped that template onto the edge like this, and then use this router bit. It's got a pilot bearing here, and it just cuts just 1/4 of an inch. But that did 2 things for me. If you can see on this edge here, I got this reference surface and this reference surface. So now I don't have to worry so much about the blowout, because all I need to do is trim this part in the middle down to that edge. And I have to do that with the carving tools, because there's no, on this top one I can use planes, a flat plane, and you just rotate it. But this inside one, there's really no good way. Like I said, the rounds don't have a steep enough angle. You need, to do end grain, you need a really low angle plane to be able to shave that. But anyway, that gives me that reference. I can see that. I mean, I have the lines, but it's hard to see that line on the back side when you're working this way. So this way I can see both edges at the same time and know what I'm doing. So then when I've got this 1/4 inch reference on both sides. Then I took on the router table, and with it flat on the table like this, I raised up a bit, and I did these flat spots here, 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 and here. They're all the same, so I just had to hit one height setting, run it through, and that gave me a reference, a finished edge reference on each of those. And then in the middle of this section here, I didn't want to get too close to the curves, but I did do, and that gave me a reference flat there. So that's why I've got this edge here. So all I have to do is, by hand, is this part and this part. And then of course at the end. So I've done one. I got a little bit more sanding to do to get that perfectly smooth in there. The risk here is I got to do something to protect this surface since it's already finished, and I used some stiff cardboard deals that I taped over that flat spot when I'm working this curve up here to protect, so I don't slip and nick this with the gouges. So that's sort of the process. I can use machines to get it to this point, but then by that I got to do by hand. So I have a lot of them to do. So we'll start by cutting the other ones out and getting them to this stage, and but it does seem to work pretty well. right, so I got all three of them done. I got them stacked up here to see how close they are to being the same. We've got the blade that goes in between there with the beads, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you want it pretty close. And I see there's a little bit of difference here, but it's okay up there. That's pretty good, and then it's just off there a bit. Otherwise, I think it looks pretty good. Still got some. So I think we're good to go. I think we'll just cut these to the right width, and then we'll go proceed with the dovetails. Well, here we are. Got all three of them trimmed so that they fit in there, and it's just it's about a 1/16 of an inch gap there, and that may be a little tight. This is winter, and they're going to expand some, but I hesitate to make it too big, but we will see. Anyway, they look pretty good, and they match up pretty good with the blades. And also you can see the lines there I marked for the hardware. I'm going to go ahead and drill those holes while I got them. I got to do that at some point before we glue up the drawer anyway. And the locks, I'll wait on the locks, but I'll just here real quick. I can drill those holes before I start on the dovetails for the drawer boxes. All right, we're getting ready to. I got the drawer material all cut except for length, and then I got the backs. But before I do that, I discovered that I am going to have to do something with the backs of the fronts. The backs of the fronts. That's pretty thick right there. And I knew I was going to have to cut some of this out. But I think putting the dovetails on there, puts it pretty far back. I looked at the pictures again, and you can see they cut it out. I can't really see, you can see it kind of going that way, but I can't really see the full middle, so I don't really know for sure what they did. And I played with, this is one of the scraps from the trimming the forefronts, and I played with different layouts. And I think this configuration looks better. And I know that the thickness right in this point where the hardware is going to go, I'm limited by there's the Reproduction brass hardware, and it has these pins go in there, and there's a hole there for the handle, so they go through. So I'm limited by this distance right there. I can't get any thicker than that in this middle. So that's the maximum's about an inch and 3/32. So, and looking at the picture, if I scale this down, it's about 1.25 inches thick, right in there. So that's kind of what I went with. I went with 1.25 inches on the end, but it's only 1 inch and 3/32 in the middle. And of course, in the middle of where the hardware is. Of course, in the middle of the drawer, it's already down to that point. So I went ahead and made a template out of one of the other scraps, and I just used a half. There's no need, so I can just set this on the drawer front. Let's do the other side here. You see the red line there is, so I just need to trace that out and then cut it. And would just be the same process we used on the front. However, laying out the dovetails or chopping the dovetails out with this all cut out, it's going to be hard to hold in places because this is going to be the lowest point, and everything else is going to be above it, so it's going to do this all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark like I did on the others. I'll mark both sides so I've got lines to go to, but I'm only going to cut this part here and this flat here. They're the same, so I'll do the same thing on the router table, run that through it. I'll make this flat and this flat, but I'll leave this part here. I'll leave that there for now until after I get the dovetails chopped. And I've still got the lock hardware. So I got these Reproduction brass locks. So I have to make a little mortise for, of course, the outside, but then also this inner part. And this pin was where the key goes in, has to be in the center of so they'll be off-centered, but that keyhole needs to be centered. So that'll be a different process. But we want to get all of that done before I actually cut out those sections here, because that way it's a little easier to handle. So. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mark these, mark all of these on both sides. Again, maintaining a top, and the same down there. I'm going to just rough it out on the bandsaw, then on the router table make those two flats, and that'll be finished. So I won't have to do any more. So then I'll go ahead and start on the dovetails after that, and that'll. Once I've got that and how much the material's 9/16, so I'll make the dovetails about 9/16 long, and that'll tell me what the length of the sides are going to be then, once I know all that. So back to work. All right, we got our the back of the fronts done. We got this flat spot here and at this end, and of course the same ones in the middle. And I put the slot for the drawer in there, even though this has still got to come out. I'll have to redo this part of it, but I wanted it to help me align the dovetails. It's in the side as well, so I can put a little piece in there, and that'll help me align it this way. And a little word about the bottom. We're going to use a solid wood bottom. So it's gonna expand. It's gonna go this way in the drawer. It's gonna go the long way. So it's gonna expand out, in and out of our box, because this side isn't going to change much in this direction. It'll go some this way, but not that way. So one of the traditional methods they did was the backs start at this slot and go up. They don't. The backs aren't. Basically the bottom can slide all the way in when the drawer is already glued up, and then it's just got a couple of nails to keep it there, and that'll let it expand a little bit and move with the temperature or with the humidity changes. So those are the two reasons I wanted to put that in. Was I need to know where the back alignment is, and of course it helps me in the front. Now I'm deviating a little bit from the way the original was built. See on this picture there's the bottom right there. So they just nailed the bottom to the drawer box, and then put a little filler strip right there underneath of it for the drawer to run on the frame, the case drawer runners. I mean, I could have done it that way, but I feel better doing it this way with the slot. And then what we'll do when we make the drawer bottoms, which we'll do after it's all glued up, So if we've got our side with our notch in it, right? And so our bottom goes here, but the bottoms are going to be close to a 1/2 inch thick, and that's only a 1/4 inch here. So it's going to be like this thick. So what we do is we cut a diagonal like that, so that that just barely hits that corner, and that kind of wedges it in there. And so this is all solid wood like that. So that's what we're going to end up doing when we make the bottoms. So I got everything. Everything is cut to size, and I've got the dovetails, the tails marked on all the sides, and I'm going to cut all of those tails out on the bandsaw for speed. And then, of course, we'll have to chop out the waist and then fit them to the fronts and the backs. So I can do all 4 drawers. The front, it's going to have some shape into it, but the front of the top drawer is what I'm talking about. The 2 shells on the outside are applied, so they're glued on after they're carved. And the one in the center, of course, is going to go into the wood. And it looks like they put a piece on the back to strengthen that where the shell is carved in. We'll have to see. Again, I've got a limit. I can only go a little bit over 1 inch thick where the hardware has to go. And that top drawer has 2 sets of handles on it, so that means that those 2 areas can only be 1 inch thick, and that's how thick the front is already without any carving in it. So we'll have to deal with that when we get to that point. But I did put the slot, the 1/4 inch slot, in the bottom of at the ends of that front. So we're going to go ahead and make all 4 drawer boxes. And then we'll have to, on the top drawer, we're going to have to do all the carving and the mortises for the locks and the handles and all that before we glue. These other 3 we'll have to just do the locks, and then we can glue up. So, I got a lot of work ahead of me to get to these, and I already took the marking gauge. If you remember what we got to do for dovetails, I took a marking gauge and measured the thickness of the board this way, and I made a mark on all around. And that is also, I made it easy on myself. That's going to be the depth of the blind dovetails that go in the back, or in the front, or the back of the front. So that's same mark there, and then the same mark here. And so I got everything marked that way, and then divided up the number of dovetails that kind of matched what was on the pictures. And they used, it looked like a 1:4 ratio for the dovetail, which is this angle here, right? So it's for 1 this way, it's 4 this way. That's how that angle is, and that's what on the picture, that's what it matches. So I did them at that point. So so we got to get these all chopped out and fit. right, we got all the drawer boxes done. There's just dry fit right now. So we'll have to finish the fronts and before we glue up. So next session, that's what we'll do. We'll put the lock hardware in, put the mortises for it, then cut and shape these backs, and then we'll be ready to glue up. And then we'll have to make the bottoms. That's all the material laying over there against the wall.